Good morning again, and sorry again for this delay and this issue. I will just present my screen and introduce the project. This is something that you probably already heard about. This is pretty much what I am going to share with you. The important thing, as mentioned previously by my colleagues, was today for you to be able to ask anything that you want, and we will answer to your question. So please just start putting your question in the Q&A box, and we will answer to it. Actually, there is no open question, so please. Maybe we can just eventually trigger some. Actually, there were some questions regarding the user-centric approach, and in the previous webinar. So I don't know if Maria, you want to elaborate just a little bit on it, how we intend to do that in TrustChain.
Okay, the idea is we are going to tutoring or mentoring you and your project, and the key point is that the product, the digital product that you will develop will need to be user-centric. It needs to put the user in the project and needs to answer the user needs. And to do so, the first phase is to identify and who will be your end user, and after that create a sample, a representative sample, sorry, and incorporate them in the phase of ideation and in the phase of testing. So for the ideation, we want to focus on qualitative methodology. That means doing focus group or in interviews to identify the needs that the user have, and identify the user requirements that the tool needs to implement in terms of design and also in terms of technical issues. So after that, the user needs to be present in the validation and the evaluation process, in testing the tool, and maybe come back to some questions that you have done in the ideation process to see if their needs are answered, the user needs are answered or not, and then all the tool will be user-centric. I don't know if you have any more questions that you want me to answer. Please feel free.
So actually, there is no more question in the question and answer box. Maybe we can move to another aspect, and maybe Ruben, if you want to highlight a little bit or recall what is needed in terms of ethical aspects for the proposal, and then also when the project will be implemented.
Ethical aspects, your proposal, in almost all cases, proposal is ethics project. Again, as I said, it relates to.
Your voice is breaking up, Ruben.
Actually, Ruben, we cannot hear you well. So
Can you hear me now?
yes, it is
Excellent.
better.
Okay. So as I was saying, the ethical aspects in the project will relate to the processing of personal data. We expect all the participants to complete the ethics questionnaire that you will have seen in the proposal documents. The idea is that you are very well aware of the data protection aspects which will be present in your project, and that you take into account the necessary steps to mitigate any compliance issues in relation to data protection. The questionnaire should guide you in identifying where potential issues may lie, but of course it will remain all participants' own responsibility to ensure that all the main data protection requirements and obligations are fulfilled, meaning you have to inform your data subjects. If you process personal data, you need to have a legal basis for processing. And if you have an internal DPO or an external one for that matter, you need to consult with them on your project, of course. Now, to the extent that your organization needs to seek ethical approval from an internal or external body, that's of course up to you to do it. And we encourage you to do that as soon as possible, so that the eligibility of your proposal does not get adversely impacted. I think that's about it from my side. I don't know whether there are questions on this aspect. I've seen that a question has popped up in the questions and answer box.
Yes, exactly. It's not about the ethical aspect. Actually, there is a question that is more related to the cascade funding principle. So maybe we can come back if there are any questions regarding the ethical aspect, and I will answer to this one. Actually, indeed, TrustChain empower innovators through funding, and the form of this funding are cascade funding one. So actually, there is an amount of 170,000 euro per selected project. How it will works? The innovator will be paid according to 4 installments that are linked to the 4 mandatory deliverables, as you may have seen in the guide for applicant. Actually, we do not, there is, of course, a specific amount for each deliverable, leading at the end to the overall funding. Each deliverable is evaluated by a pool of internal evaluators, and at the end, an evaluation summary report is produced that will mention if the project can, at least the deliverable can be directly paid as it is, in case of good result. There is the possibility also to have, let's say, the need for addressing recommendation by the reviewer. In that case, the funding is unlocked when this recommendation has been taken into account and the deliverable has been revised. And finally, there might be some possibility that are very rare, that if the outcome do not meet the requirement set up by the TrustChain, let's say, consortium, there might be a red flag and the possibility for non-payment of the deliverable. As I already mentioned, this possibility is really rare because this is not in the interest of both you, further selected project, and the consortium to arrive to this result. Okay, so this is more or less the process for payment. Now, when it comes to cost statement or cost reporting, there is no need because this is a lump sum. I encourage you nonetheless to keep track of the expenses that you have made, because there might be some possible audit coming from the European Commission, not from the TrustChain consortium. So this is important in that case to be able to justify the cost according to the expenses that you have made in the project. So that's pretty much all from for this question. I hope I was clear enough. So if there is any other, please mention them in the question and answer box. So maybe we can expand a little bit more again on the reference architecture. I don't know, Jesus, if you want to explain a bit more on that and give some more input.
Jesus is not in the session, Caroline.
Okay. Okay, so maybe just to
if you like
to recall. Yes, please, Vlado, if you want.
This architecture is actually an architecture that has been designed as part of the European with the EIDAS 2 system. At least our faculty at the moment is engaged in some projects with our government in implementing the European blockchain services infrastructure with a couple of projects that have specific use cases. And alongside with these use cases comes an implementation of a digital wallet, which is an open source implementation based on this European standard. The standard at the moment seems to be quite complex, seems to be designed to implement many different use cases, such as notarization of diplomas, such as I mean, plenty of use cases that are already explained at the website of the European Digital Identity Wallet. And here that you can see this architecture is actually showing, it's just a figure that shows what kind of features are meant to be implemented in this digital wallet. From the viewpoint of our project, what we want to achieve are new and innovative approaches to dealing with the European identity, maybe also some completely new approaches for dealing with the digital identity that are more optimized, easier to use, and especially what we'd like to explore in the project is this onboarding of users to start using the digital identity. So I think this is what is meant by this. There are key features that we already know there should be, but maybe some novel approaches of how these features can be used and made available to the citizens of Europe, particularly from the viewpoint of usability, would also be something to be explored by the project. I think maybe some other colleagues may have some more ideas on this, but generally, this is from my perspective.
I can also add few add-ons to what my colleague Vlado has mentioned. I think the ARF framework was published in February. Just to highlight the new digital wallet architecture. And I think one of the inherent challenges in terms of usability of these digital wallets is around each wallet is quite vendor locked, and it is for specific purpose. And I think one of the overarching aim is to create digital wallets which can interoperate, but at the same time can kind of be used for multiple purposes, including payments, assets, as well as identity, which is one of the bottlenecks of the digital wallet adoption at the moment within Europe, because they don't kind of give you, so as a user, you need to have multiple wallets. And I think that's the main reason the TrustChain emphasizes quite clearly about the human-centric approach, because the humans at the moment needs to carry multiple digital wallets for payments, identity, and for other aspects of self-sovereignty. So in order to overcome this kind of bottleneck, that's why we are emphasizing that, as my colleague Maria initially mentioned, that we would expect all projects to work with end user community so that we have the human in the loop from the early phases of design, and then we go into evaluating at a later stage. So we really build these practical open source solutions which are interoperable with European standards, and it's also kind of for multi-purpose, not just vendor locked in, and which seems to be a sticking point for technology adoption within Europe at the moment. So that's my add-on to Vlado's comments here. So we are open for innovation, but at the same time, we would like to see how it fits in with the European thinking in terms of the EDAS 2.0 framework, the RF framework, as well as the FINOS, for example, which is the Linux Foundation for open source wallets. So try to aligning with the existing frameworks so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel and produce silos, which seems to be, again, a challenge. So we want to create solutions which people can plug and play in the future decentralized internet. That's from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Raj. Thank you, Vlado, for this. Maybe just to encourage the discussion, there were also many questions regarding the use of the Alastria infrastructure. So do you want to expand on that, Raj?
Yes, I think one of the questions which came up a few times in the last two webinars is around the usage of Alastria network. We don't really force you or expect you all to fit your solution into the Alastria network, but it's an open source framework. So as a project, we expect you to have open innovation, which means you can kind of fit into any open standards and frameworks, which is clearly then allows us to build solutions which are interoperable. So there is no hard and fast rule within the project that you should be following anything that has to fit in. But there is support from Alastria for those who haven't got any infrastructure in place to validate or test your solutions. But you can build your own based around open standards and open framework. I don't know if Vlada want to add anything, but we encourage any kind of new disruptive innovation as long as it is interoperable and based around open standards. Thank you.
Thank you again, Raj. There is, as you might understand, and we can recall, that you will be, when selected, you will have access to diverse services. As mentioned here by Raj, the use of the Alastria infrastructure is not mandatory, but this is, of course, if helpful, you will have access to it for your project. There will be other services available for you, especially regarding the user-centric approach, as it has been mentioned by Maria early on. You will have also the possibility to have some support regarding networking activities, and also eventually to speed up your business. You will get also some support regarding that aspect. Yes, finally, you will be followed by, of course, some the most qualified expert in the different field pertaining to TrustChain. You will have some mentoring, and we will also organize some joint activity with all of you in order to achieve the common goal of the project. So yes, this is regarding the support services from our side. I still do not see any other question in the Q&A boxes. I don't know if from my colleagues there is specific comment that you want to emphasize on.
I think it looks like people have already got the idea of what the project is looking for. So I think,
yeah.
I think if there are no questions, which is a good sign at this stage that people are clear with what's expected as part of this call.
And we have one. We have one, so I will read it. So I agree that the ARF is a great framework, but there are many questions arising on the offline proximity flows presented into the specification. So is there any comment on that?
Actually, I would like to learn what is proximity flow according to this question.
So can you please just elaborate a bit more on your comment in the box, so that we can discuss on that point. So just the idea is to elaborate on the offline proximity flows. That is not something well understood by the TrustChain partners.
I think just to add to that anyway, as it is a framework that is suggested, I would say that even EDAS 2 has many challenges still. And I think in any technology adoption, that always there is going to be challenges in terms of different specifications. So yeah, I think that offline proximity flow requires peer-to-peer communication of wallet, which is what is a big challenge. Yes, I agree with you, Emmanuel, in terms of the peer-to-peer communication without the need for internet, because one of the criteria for the wallets is that if there is no internet, the wallet should still be usable. So obviously it is a challenge, but there is also a challenge how you will still have to use other mechanisms if the mobiles lose their charge. So I think these are areas which will need very careful design thinking, because obviously when we move from paper identity records to move into digital records and mobile identity now, there are still many challenges we encounter. So just to answer the other question as well from Laura in terms of the use of ARF is mandatory. I wouldn't say it's mandatory because these are new frameworks that are coming in, but what we are trying to see as a project is to see how your solution is aligning towards the future framework that's proposed by the EU, rather than building another set of solutions which cannot then fit into any of the existing architectures. But I think that's a good question in terms of this offline peer-to-peer comms of the internet. I personally have been in a panel last week, and it is a very interesting model, but there are solutions, I think, already in place which can work offline anyway. So it does have certain restrictions, but it does, again, allow you to work in areas where there is no coverage from internet. So I think you can go into very interesting new proposals coming around low-cost hardware devices that can then help you to work in a local community-based networks rather than going through the internet. So I think this is where I think new innovation can happen, and we hope some new projects will come out of this new framework too, as part of the TrustChain calls.
And now that you explain this, I understand what it is, and it's quite interesting. Also, I think it's a very interesting topic for innovation, I would say, because change management at the end, at the edge of the network, where connectivity can vary quite a lot. So we do a lot of projects in edge computing nowadays. And I think there could be solutions, of course, that would actually aim at solving problems like this, and also maybe systematically and more formally, if you like, from research viewpoint, address how the state management can be achieved when there is sparse or not full connectivity, like internet connectivity. So definitely very interesting topic.
I can answer the next one. Am I understand right
Yes.
that creation of better wallet technology is a subject of a call? I think it's not just about technology. I will repeat as what we said already, that the challenge with most of the wallets today is the technology adoption, because there is still people are reluctant to use many of the wallets. So how do we create this wallet which can be usable by the citizens? So technology is one aspect of it, but we also need to make this is something that is usable by the society. So that is again, it's a twofold emphasis here, the usability as well as the the technology. So you can be as innovative as possible, but if your technology is not usable by the society, and that's why we would like to see, or we emphasize that you need to do the end user evaluation and to make it more technology, not technology driven, but user driven. This is why we ask you to work with our partners who are experts in terms of user-centric design, bringing in the ethnography and social aspects of design process so that it is more usable rather than just being something that is cutting edge, but not really something adaptable by the society. Yeah, I think all these presentations will be available. My colleagues can advise on this, but most of these presentations are available afterwards.
I would like to add a little bit to this usability aspect. So we have been quite a lot discussing the questions of the current wallets, digital wallets, that are kind of really, okay, many people use them, but they're really technologists, but not ordinary people. And here the question is how, in what way can wallets be included in either things that we are using, or maybe how to assess the security and the privacy of any wallet, how this information can join in at one place so that the user can have full understanding or view at the ownership of that user, including the car and the computer and the mobile phone and whatever is in the ownership. There could be any other business that one person can do with the things owned. So that could also be fitting into that, because the identity that we have, there are a few ways of how we can assess and present it, either through the things that we have or possess, either through the things that we know about us. So these are the way how we assert our identities. We link our identities to the ID cards and the national databases. We do a lot of actions with our digital identity. So any of these topics that are research and innovation oriented and improve the usability, that is the onboarding of users to start using these digital wallets, is of course also part of this call.
Thank you, Vlado, for adding on top of what was aforementioned. Actually, regarding the presentation, of course, you will have access to it thanks to our social media. And I don't know, there is already the first webinar and the second one that are display. You can have access to them on our TrustChain website. And I will just ask Daniel when this one, the third one, will be available for our applicant.
Okay, so as usual, it takes 1 day to have the recording available and to upload to our social media channels. So expect to have it by tomorrow or Wednesday tops.
So, thank you, Daniel.
And I
Any
think
other?
just to add as
yes?
a final point, I think those projects which are successful in the final selection process, I think we clearly emphasize that you work with us to really design or incorporate user aspects from the early stage. So please don't go ahead, start building your solutions without interacting with the consortium partners who will help you to kind of design the questionnaires from the early stage with qualitative design process, so that we really don't then have to come back and ask you to change things as you progress. So it's something I thought we should emphasize as the final closing remark, to make sure that you do engage. The successful projects should clearly engage with our team to understand better how to engage the end users from the early stage of the project, so that we don't have any last minute haggle in terms of chasing the end users and the community to validate your solutions. That's all from me. Thank you.
And if I may add on top of that, this is not only about, I mean, the engagement when you will be selected, if you have the chance to be selected. The engagement in TrustChain will be for, of course, the whole life cycle of your project, but further on, because it was not stated today in this webinar, but if you review a bit the first and second one, you will see that each open call feed the other one. So that means that as we are trying to develop an ecosystem of solution, we might ask you over the 3-year period to sometime intervene in a different event of the project, just to be able to make an adequate transfer of knowledge. And this is how we intend to make this TrustChain ecosystem sustainable. So your commitment will go over the simple duration of your project. So this is really important if we want to achieve our primary goal. So actually, I think that if there is no other question, which, as already mentioned, is a good sign, we can maybe close this webinar. And of course, looking forward to your proposal. So thanks to all of you to be present here today, and hopefully we will see your work soon. So thank you, and hope your work will be fruitful.